Good morning. It is Friday, uh, March 12th. We're on lesson 71. Really amazing miracle happened yesterday. Um, the people that originally published A Course in Miracles, ACIM, um, is an organization called the Foundation of Inner Peace. And I have a friend named Willem. And Willem had reached out to Willem had reached out to them on behalf of um, a woman by the name of Tina Louise Spalding, who wrote this book called A Year of Forgiveness, and it chronicled her journey with Jesus, of the lessons and his commentary for A Course in Miracles. An absolutely beautiful book. And what she was able to do was she was able to use the lessons at the top, the actual verbiage from the lessons at the top of each section that she wrote. So like let's look at lesson 71. If you go to lesson 71 in her book, it says, only God's plan for salvation will work. And then after that, it says, follow the complete lesson guidelines in your A Course in Miracles book. So it gives credit to A Course in Miracles. It gives credit to the Foundation for Inner Peace for permission to use the lessons. So Willem wrote to them on behalf of myself and Magdalene and got permission yesterday from the Foundation of Inner Peace for us to, when we're finished with this journey at the end of this year, to be able to publish a book and use all of the commentary from Magdalene and to use the course lessons in the creation of that book. And that happened yesterday, and it was just mind-blowing. Oh my God, I'm so excited. It didn't really, like, it hadn't settled into me that this would become a book, but it's going to, this journey of channeling her and the beautiful words of wisdom that she's speaking about, the lessons from A Course in Miracles every day. Yeah, it's going to be really awesome. So excited for that. Yeah, I have an artist in mind. Her name is Robin Messina, and she's an extraordinary artist. So I'm going to have a conversation with her. There's another woman that I work with who actually is one of my staff. Her name is Cassidy, and Cassidy is also an extraordinary artist. So we're going to call it a year of love. Anyway, very, very excited for that. So yeah, that was a miracle. Okay, so today we are on lesson number 71. And lesson 71 is only God's plan for salvation will work. You may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in opposition to God's. It is this plan in which you believe. Since it is the opposite of God's, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of ego is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course. Yet after we have considered just what the ego's plan is, perhaps you will realize that, however preposterous it may be, you do believe it. The ego's plan for salvation centers on holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke and acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. The change of mind would be necessary for salvation. The change of mind, which is necessary for salvation, is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. The role assigned to your own mind, then, is simply determine what, other than itself, must change if you are to be saved. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue. For the illusion persists that although this hope has failed, there are still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. Another person will serve better. Another situation will offer hope. Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how this is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine: seek but do not find. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channel all your efforts into searching for it where it is not? God's plan for salvation works simply because, by following his direction, you seek for salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed, as God promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise, your purpose is divided and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation, which are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair. How can you escape all this? Very simply. The idea for today is the answer. Only God's plan for salvation will work. There can be no real conflict about this, because there is no possible alternative to God's plan that will save you. His is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. His is the only plan that must succeed. Let us practice recognizing this certainty today, and let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seemed to be a conflict with no possible resolution. All things are possible to God. Salvation must be yours because his plan. Salvation must be yours because of his plan, which cannot fail. Begin the 2 longer practice periods today by thinking about today's idea and realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contribution. Excuse me. Each making equal contribution to the whole. God's plan for your salvation will work, and the other plans will not. Do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It is inherent in the first. And in the first is your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. They have led to depression and anger, but God's plan will succeed. It will lead to release and joy. Remembering this, let us devote the remainder of the extended practice period to asking God to reveal his plan to us. Ask him very specifically, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? Give him full charge of the rest of the practice period, and let him tell you what needs to be done by you in his plan for salvation. He will answer you in proportion to your willingness to hear his voice. Refuse not to hear. The very fact that you are doing these exercises proves that you have some willingness to listen. This is enough to establish your claim to his answer. In the shorter practice periods, tell yourself often that only God's plan for salvation will work. Be alert to all temptation to hold grievances today and respond to them. And with this form of today's idea, holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only his plan will work. Try to remember the idea for today some 6 or 7 times an hour. There could be no better way to spend half a minute or less than to remember the source of your salvation and to see it where it is. Lesson 71. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Beautiful. Okay, let's see what Magdalene brings us today. Greetings, beloveds. When you surrender your will, your personal will, You allow yourself to be in alignment with the will of God. Salvation comes. When you ask at each and every moment, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? With whom would you have me be? You are choosing at each and every moment, beloved ones, to have your heart, your mind, your actions in direct correlation with that of the will of God. And as you know, the will of God is love for all beings. Therefore, this would mean that every word that you speak, every action that you take, every thought that you think would be an extension of the truth of you, which is love. It is a sense of course correction. It is a sense of you allowing yourself in each and every moment to be an extension of the will and the mind and the heart of God. This is what my beloved had achieved in allowing himself to see innocence. It is what he taught me. It is what he taught all. He lived his life and continues to bring his consciousness to all beings. And when you reach out to ask, what would you have me do? We are ready with an answer for you, beloved ones. We are here to bring you back to the consciousness that you have set aside, that you have forgotten. That is why this journey, beloved ones, is one of allowing you to remember that which you have forgotten. The beauty and the majesty and the holiness that you are, the tenderness, the precious love that you are. So allow yourselves, dear ones, to ask, Holy Spirit, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? With whom would you have me do this? And you will watch the very landscape of your life alter in front of you. You will see the signs, much like breadcrumbs that are left along the way on the journey. You will be able to hear the voices that speak to you, that say, choose this rather than that. Go here rather than there. You will find answers to your questions in every way possible. And you will find, beloveds, that you are indeed ushered and guided through your existence to find your way home, to find your way to the return to love that is the truth of you. For you have merely forgotten, and that indeed has been part of the dynamic of incarnation, to allow yourself through your own personal will and volition to choose the light and the love of God. For that is the purest of your essence. It is the purest of your minds. It is the beauty and the bounty that you have been granted, that all have been granted, beloved ones. And when you allow yourself to return to the preciousness of your heart, when you allow yourself to see beyond the veil of illusion, and you remember that only God's plan for salvation will work, you look for ways, beloved ones, to bring yourself back to the truth. God's plan for salvation is that you remember who you are, what you were given when you were granted life, when you were granted beingness. For God indeed had one creation, and that creation was that of the Christed consciousness. It is manifested in many, many ways, many dimensions, many forms. There is one elemental truth of all beings, and that they are a manifestation of God. That is the truth of you, beloved ones. So allow yourself today to spend time in quiet repose. Grant yourself this time allotted to go within and to know that God's plan for salvation is indeed yours. Look for it, beloved ones, and you will indeed find it. Should you need assistance, should you forget, should you lose your way, ask. Allow any grievances that you have held, beloved ones, to fall to the wayside, for they are not real. They are not real at all. Our blessings to you. Love always. And we will speak with you again.